Hello, welcome to the Second Button Podcast.
Hello. We should do that every single time.
La la la. I'll do the hello, you do the la la la.
La,
Stay
la,
tuned
la.
until episode 4.
Yeah. Second Button Podcast.
I'm Andrew. Yeah, I'm Andrew, and this is
Brian Gower. This is episode 3, so we're watching episode 3, The Robbery, and we're gonna go over that and kind of the recap of that episode. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this. This is good. So I think now, I mean, it's the podcast is actually up, so people have heard it.
we got some feedback from people already for this episode. Episode 2, we had no feedback.
Yeah, so from
So
episode
now,
from episode 1, and yeah, people are digging it. I think a lot of people say music. We need music.
We'll work on that.
Yeah,
We'll try.
I just got to figure out what to do because I'm like, I could do some of my band's music, but it's all like punk, and that doesn't fit really in my head for Jerry Seinfeld or Seinfeld podcast, and we can't use the show. And people think like, why don't you just take the slap bass intro? I'm like, yeah, we'll get copyright right away.
And we can slap our own bass, but it's not going to sound nearly as good. So.
Yeah, I got to learn how to play slap bass. This is one thing. That's one thing. Do you play bass? Do you have a bass?
I have a bass. I when I play bass, I play the notes for my chords for my guitar part and just play bass notes on it, and that's about as far as I go. Yeah.
You
We
never
could just do the audio. We can just go.
I can't do it. Yeah. There you go.
Perfect.
I was
We'll work on the music. If anyone
yeah.
wants music, it's coming.
I have a buddy who's a Seinfeld fan, which we'll eventually get guests and stuff like that on. But he was like, "Yeah, just do it all with your mouth." He was like, he was doing a really good job on. I'm like, actually, that sounds pretty good. If you could record that, I'll put it as the intro. I can't do it. He's like popping his pop 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 pop. Then I'm like, shit, okay. Anyway, yeah. So, we'll get into episode 3. But before that, what's new in your world? What's shaking? What's good, Andrew?
I spent the weekend at the Nova Scotia Music Week. Every year they have an event. There's an organization that works all year, and they help out local artists getting out in the industry and figuring out how to market and stuff. And there's all kind of legs to that kind of help out the local musicians. So they have a award ceremony and more of a gathering of Nova Scotia artists every year. So I went and worked that for Jam Sessions podcast, which is a local podcast. And me and my brother did that. We interviewed 11 different acts and got to make some connections in the local music scene, which is good where I moved away from everything I've ever known. Like where I lived before, I lived there my whole life.
Okay, so yeah,
now
you're kind of meeting some people,
yeah, closer to the city now, and I met lots of people from the city on the music scene, so that will help. Hopefully down the road when I'm kind of getting back into live, things are starting to open up again now,
making connections. Be like, hey, you need a guitar player or something like that.
Yeah,
or bass. Like, I can play the notes of the chords. I know how to do that.
Yeah, I'll just follow along with the guitar player. Yeah.
It's like, and that's kind of I play bass in my band, and that's kind of most of the time what I'm doing. Just kind of root notes on bass. I slide to notes a lot, and when I do like a bass slide, the guys are like, "Yeah, that's good." And I'm like, "That's my only like fill that I do."
That's my
like,
move.
Boom!
Yeah.
I do it all the time. But yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that all weekend, or 2 days. Friday and Saturday we did that, and those episodes are coming out. If anyone wants to check out Jam Sessions podcast, it's more of a Nova Scotia, Pictou County / Nova Scotia thing, but you might find something interesting in there.
Yeah, and then they were interviews, right? So did you have to like do research of the artists or the bands, or did they submit? You were saying
not,
before
my brother did all that.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Yeah, he did.
He did the research, and we got the bio off of the website. The website had a lot of research done on these people already, and they submitted their own bio. So we kind of pulled their bio, and my brother went in and did the deep dive, and he had like a sheet on each artist, and it was really
doing the homework.
Prepared. Yeah, he did all the homework, and I showed up and ran the soundboard and recorded. So
yeah, and then I'm really bad at like interviews because my podcast isn't. We don't really. It's a music guitar podcast, and we don't really interview people. We have people on as guests. Maybe we'll do like 5 minutes of like just like a back story on somebody about, and then we talk about whatever. The people who can do interviews, that's tough because I'm like, you have to do work and have to know what the fuck this person or this
and he
band
did a
or
really
whatever.
good job.
Yeah.
And my brother's always been interested in music. He worked at the music stores growing up.
Mhm.
He's always been interested. And then he got an adult job, and
Okay. Yeah.
he's been in IT for 20 years. But this year really seemed to light a fire under his ass, and he seems to really be enjoying it. So
Does he play music too?
he doesn't. No, he's just always been a huge fan of music. He had,
Oh.
yeah. He's the one that bought the $1,500 stereo as soon as he got a job and saved up and bought that first thing. Like he's
Yeah.
always been a huge music fan. So this is good for him to.
Yeah, kind of be involved in it, but not being like, oh, I'm playing guitar and stuff like that. You can still be a fan of music without being a musician.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So-
it was fun.
So fun, but
And-
also some work and shit like that. But
I got a new guitar. We can talk about that later. You saw it?
Yeah,
Nice
yeah.
Sparkly silver.
no, it's a Harley Benton, right? And it's
It is, yeah.
So what do those run at? Like 150, 200 or
It was $240 before
Okay.
shipping Canadian. I
Gotcha.
think so like for you it would be like $170, I think, around there or less.
Mhm.
Shipping was a little more, but I didn't pay any duty when it arrived, so shipping was okay. And I think it was $300 total for Canadian with shipping and taxes and everything included. So
yeah, so it's like
and I compared it to Epiphones at the a $600 Epiphone, and this is better from what I've played
Mhm.
in the store. So
it's
a good
a
deal.
P90 Les Paul Jr. kind of deal, and it's sparkly, very cool looking. I'm digging it. Have you
there's
played?
no duct tape on it yet, so
Yeah. That's how you're gonna punk it up. Get some stickers or something. Are you a sticker on a guitar guy, or is that a
no? I think I have one sticker on one guitar and one on my acoustic. So
not like
the acoustic was because when I bought it, there was a big gouge out of it, so the sticker kind of took the focus off that gouge.
Cover it. So, all right. So that guitar will remain unstickered. No sticker fi for that one.
We'll see. We'll see what happens with the paint job.
Yeah, but no, that's cool. That's a good good little weekend for you. Got a new guitar. Got some podcasting in. Got to meet some local musicians.
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing. There's 88 different bands / musicians at different acts at this event.
Mhm.
So it's a big deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
fun.
I think there's sometimes there's things like that. I've heard in San Diego. I want to say it's not really an awards thing, but it's like meeting. It always like something that I'm like, oh man, I should go to that, and I just like always forget. And I think with COVID they haven't done it for a couple of years, but let's keep my eyes and ears open for something like that. It'd be kind of fun to go to because I'm like, oh, I know musician friends, but I'm like, there's a lot of bands I would never cross paths with, as far as like, because I play punk, so I wouldn't really play with a lot of rock or reggae or world music and stuff like that. But there's like so many fucking bands everywhere, obviously. But yeah, no, that's cool.
So what's new with you?
Let's see. I today bought some used boots on OfferUp. I don't think I maybe have really ever thought about buying used shoes or boots, and I don't know. There was somebody saying, "Oh, would you buy used underwear?" Or I'm like, no. But I mean, I've bought used jackets and shit like that. So I'm like, oh, what's the difference between boots or whatever? But
You don't have to break them in now. They're already broken in.
Yeah, so I got some with Red Wings Iron Rangers, which I have a pair of them in their black because I played it safe because I wanted to get some nice boots. It was like a couple years ago, and then I was like, all right, I've wanted Red Wings forever. I had friends who had them, and I'm like, okay. So I got the black ones because I'm like, I'll play it safe because black pretty much goes with everything.
Yeah.
And they look good and they're cool, but they're not as cool as like the amber ones, which are kind of like the light brown looking ones, kind of like almost like reddish looking. And I'm like, I should have got a pair of those because a friend of mine, Johnny Two Guns, he has them, or he's got the blacksmith, which is like a little bit different than the Iron Rangers, but he has that color amber. And I'm like, every time I see him, he wears them all the time. And I'm like, damn, I should have got those. They look cool. So anyways, I was, just OfferUp and stuff like that. I was like, I think one time it was like earlier in the year or last year or whatever. I think I saw a pair for like $100 and I emailed the guy and messaged him and I'm like, just never responded. I'm like, I want to give you your asking price for these things. I'm like,
yeah,
maybe he already sold them or whatever. So it's, and then it came up. These came up again, but different seller. I'm like, is this the same guy? And then I looked. I'm like, no, it's different person, same price, same shoes. And you could look at. It's the exact size that I wear because I already have the black ones and know that like they fit and I like them. And yeah, saw the color that I wanted, and it's like, I don't know. I don't have a problem buying used boots. To me, it doesn't seem gross. What about for you? I was gonna ask. I'm like, does that seem like a gross thing to buy, like secondhand shoes?
As long as they didn't smell. Well, these boots aren't cheap boots that are going to soak in a lot of smell anyway, right? They're higher end boots.
Yeah,
So I think I'll be okay with that. Especially if you're getting multiple colors, you don't want to spend a shit ton of money on.
Yeah, I mean the
three or
black,
4 different colors.
Yeah, the black. I mean, this is totally just a want, not a need. I didn't need to buy these. It's something that I'm like, it's $100, and I'm like, normally they are like $350, 25 new. So
I'll have less of a problem with it because it's so cheap.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I didn't have a problem with it. I guess I have friends who who have bought and used boots, and Kyle, my co-host of my podcast, he's like a shit ton of them. He's gotten to a thing where it's like he kind of goes into like, I'm gonna get really into this. So I think he's bought like 5 or 6 pairs of boots. And I'm like,
this is my thing now. Yeah, I'm the boot guy.
I'm a boot guy. I'm like, why? You don't need that many. And he's like, oh man, he got like the loggers, which are like kind of really tall. Like I don't know, they go up like I think 12 inches or whatever. And then they're like, he got them resold, and they're really tall. So he kind of is like 6'3", anyways. And then now adds another like 2 inches or whatever to him. Like, dude, you're gigantic. But anyways, so he's had good history of buying used boots, and he's pretty much just going sight unseen on eBay. And I'm like, okay, well these like I could try out. The guy's local, and yeah. So this for me, I'm like, I don't know. I think I've said to some people like, oh, and they were like, that's really cool, and then some people are like, oh, that's kind of gross. I'm like, I'm not like licking the things. A boat licker.
No, footwear is different than underwear.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I've bought and used shirts and jackets, like I said. I mean, I think I bought a pair of used jeans before, but I'm like, this is like the first like footwear. And to me, I guess I didn't have a problem with it because I'm like, I wanted them so bad. And maybe in my head, I didn't even like think to like, okay, well, I just put them on and wore them. I'm like, okay, I wore them out the door from the guy's house. I'm like, okay, here's $100. Thanks. Bye.
Can you throw these old shoes away? Thanks, man.
I went to my local liquor store, grabbed a couple beers. And as I'm going into the place, I'm like, these have a different sole or like tread than my other ones. These are like a little harder and like less rubbery grip or whatever. And so they make like a really loud like foot noise, like as you're stepping.
Oh yeah.
And it's like sounds like a movie, like a sound effect. Because I'm like,
and I'm like spurs on the heel and everything.
Yeah, it almost sounds like cowboy boots or something. Like you're in a western or something. But I'm just going in there, and there was a dude who was getting beer too, and he's like, "I gotta tell you, man, you cannot sneak up on anybody." I could hear you walking in this door, dude. I was like looking around, I'm like, oh my God, is this a Western? Am I going to get shot up, dude? And I started laughing. And I'm like, yeah, these are basically like tap shoes. And he's like, they look cool, but man, you're loud. And I'm like, yeah, he's right. Yeah. They look the harder cork soles, but I don't know. I'm stoked on them. So that's my what's new. I bought some used shoes, and now I'm walking a mile in somebody else's shoes. Boom.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I have the black ones. I have the amber ones. I'm good to go. I sent you the picture. They're pretty sweet looking boots, right? I just need validation.
Yeah. I buy Converse because they're cheap and I can buy all different colors and have a whole wardrobe of shoes.
Well, I'm trying to go, and I think I've said this before. I'm trying to go either just sneakers like running shoes of Nikes or Red Wings. That's it. I'm not gonna like. Yeah. I think I used to wear like Vans and Converse and stuff like that because they look cool, but I'm like, nah. If I want to be comfortable, I'll wear the Nikes. If I want to look nicer, I'll wear the Red Wings. And
Vans hurt my feet. I'm old. I can't wear Vans anymore.
Yeah, so I'm wearing running shoes. There's like walking on clouds. That's my deal. But
a couple years they'll be all white, New Balance.
Yeah, get the dad shoes, or like Court Classics or whatever they're called, the Monarchs, exactly. Air Monarchs. All right, but let's just jump into the episode. What do you say?
Yeah, so episode 3 is the robbery.
Yeah.
And everything's kind of coming together now. By the end of this episode, everything kind of feels like Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I think season 2, it feels more like it, but the bedroom area is set back. There's a hallway there. You can see a bedroom door, the bathroom, like the big picture window's gone. Everything's
yeah.
the set
It's
seems
definitely
to be settled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're getting the setup shots, like when they go into Jerry's apartment. You know how they have the setup shot where it's like a camera from street looking at like the apartment building. So I'm like, oh, that was I think the first time that this shot was used to transition between scenes. I'm like, oh, we're in Jerry's apartment now. But anyways, it starts off and Jerry and actually it starts off with Jerry doing a bit that, like a joke that wasn't really related to the episode at all. So it's another one where it's like, oh, it just
the
opens
finger thing.
Yeah, getting the finger in the traffic.
We had that happen actually a couple weeks ago. This girl.
Somebody gave you the finger?
Well, we might have gave them the finger. But anyway, we got cut off.
You gave them doughblaze. You both stick them.
We do the whole hands in the air thing. Like, what the fuck?
That's
I'm on video here at Brian now, shaking my hands in the air. But
you always get the hand up and then shake like, you fuck. Yeah. Go on.
But then for the next 10 minutes, like, so she cut us off and then sped right up and hands in the air, kind of, who the fuck do you think you are? And then she slowed right down and she's like in front of us going slow. And I was like, I thought this one was in a hurry. And then she speeds up and then she moves over in the other lane and I have cruise control. And so I'm not changing my speed this whole time.
Yeah.
And I end up passing her because she slowed right down in the other lane. So I pass her.
Mm-hmm.
And then she catches up to us, passes us again, gets right in front of me, slows right down again. And then she's over, it's a 3-lane highway at this point. She's in the far lane, I'm in the other lane, like opposite sides. And then Ashley looks at me and she goes, that girl's like staring at you. And I look over and then she just starts screaming from her car across 2 lanes of traffic with both of our windows up. And she's just screaming at me. And this went on for 5 minutes. She's on my ass. She's in front of me. She's slowing down. She's stopping. She's yelling at us every time and giving me a dirty look. And I was like, what the hell is with this woman? Yeah. So I think Jerry's plan to get your foot up and give someone the toe is probably a bad idea because this woman would probably ram me off the road if I gave her the toe.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it's funny because this is like what, 90 or 89 or whatever?
89, yeah.
I do remember it was like I think the first like Dane Cook special or whatever that was on like Comedy Central. I remember him kind of having like a similar, and not that he like Carlos Mencia did the joke, but he's kind of talking about like, where did the finger come from? How come that was the one? They're like, like it's not index, it's not ring, but middle. That's the one.
My friend, he grew up in Japan, then moved to the UK, so I'm not sure where this came, but he does the 2 fingers. He does the index and the middle finger.
Yeah.
And I mean to ask him, like, why the 2 fingers? Like, that's what they do. They give the 2 fingers.
Okay, yeah.
Just doubling down on that finger.
Yeah, getting over there. You getting 2, get doubles.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, and I was like, okay, that it still holds up, the joke. Anyways, that Jerry's joke aside, it goes into Elaine and Jerry. They're in their apartment. Jerry's packing up to go on a trip. I think he's going to like Minneapolis or something like that for stand up. And then he's kind of going over like, how well of a packer he is for trips.
Yeah.
And his expert pack job. And
I think there's a direct correlation to your history playing Tetris and packing.
Yeah. And then I was always thinking, I'm like, I'm a pretty light packer when it comes to like travel and stuff like that. I think of like when my band would tour, you just want to bring the least amount of stuff. Because I'm like, okay, you have 1 pair of jeans, and then it's not like you're gonna wash them for a week. I don't wash them. I barely wash my jeans.
My jeans go in the laundry when I think I got stink on them.
Yeah, you do the smell test, and then you get like a pair of basketball shorts, and then some shirts you could probably double up on some days of shirts, and then underwear. But where I don't skimp is underwear and socks. You got to have plenty of those. So imagine having no underwear for like a week. I'm like, no, you're gonna have to either stop somewhere and get somewhere, or like pack it.
Sometimes I change that halfway through the day, but yeah, always grab. If I'm going for 5 days, I take 7 pairs of underwear just in case.
It's old DVD from the band Sugar Cult. a band I really dig them. But anyways, they have like a DVD that I'll still like kind of watch every once in a while, kind of like behind the scenes of their tour and stuff like that. It was like their tour manager. It was funny because it's like little quirky things that they chose to add to the DVD. He was talking about, it's like, oh, I never wear the same pair of socks more than once. So he wears them for the day, throws them away. I'm like, that's really wasteful.
Just gives them to tell us. Yeah.
It was like,
fuck the planet.
Yeah. He throws them away. And I'm like thinking now, I'm like, that's so wasteful. I use the shit out of my socks. Probably longer than I should throw them away sooner than I do. But anyway.
My socks last till a hole forms in the heel. Then I'm like, well, that pair's got to go.
When it's in the toe, I hate that. Because I'm like, it'll maybe be like a little hole at the beginning of the day. I'm like, yeah, these can last. And then by the end of the day, your toes are sticking through. I'm like, it's annoying. But anyway, so Jerry's.
We digress.
Yeah, going back. Jerry's, he's packing, he's getting ready to go. Elaine's over there. She's gonna watch The Apartment while he's away. Kind of gives her the spiel about like some bad things about the apartment, like the heater, the water temperature, stuff like that. Fridge is on the fritz. Like sometimes you can only store certain things in there.
And takes an hour for the heat to turn on the wall in the bathtub.
And then George comes in and it's like, oh, why are you watching the place? Are you going with him too? He's like, no. It's like I'm trying to get away from my roommate. She has a roommate she doesn't like. This is actually really annoying. So that kind of sets the scene there. And then Jerry comes back from his trip and he kind of just
before that though, Jerry makes a comment about her having sex in his apartment.
Oh yeah.
What an awkward situation for anyone to be in.
My ex-girlfriend having sex like in my apartment, like it's 4 days, or like was a weekend. It's like
I've never been in a situation where I was that friendly with an ex to have them watch my apartment, let alone tell them not to have sex in my apartment.
Yeah. Right? If you have to, use the tub.
Use a tub.
The tub. Yeah.
So then Jerry goes off to his music show.
That was a pretty good one. If you have to, use the tub. And the whole time he has, I think, his umbrella that he's pointing and stuff like that as like giving her the rundown. So yeah, he comes back and then I think the door was open or something like that. So or maybe that wasn't a key part of it, but he comes in, sets his bags down, sits down on the sofa, grabs the channel changer to turn on the TV. No TV. And he's clicking around the room and noticing, I'm like, I'm missing stuff. I'm missing shit.
Just pointing around the whole room.
Yeah, he's pointing around the whole room like it's going to appear or something like that. And then, so he, he realizes he's got all the shit stolen because I think Elaine comes in. So they stole the TV, the VCR, his computer, leather jacket, the stereo, and the answering machine. And then, so it's like all these things gone. So Elaine comes in, explains the situation. It's like, oh, what happened? It's like, oh, the door was left open. It's like unlocked or open. It was open because Kramer left it open because he was coming in and getting like a spatula or something like that. And then
Kramer's got his hair now. He has the height of that hair now.
Oh, it's starting to come up. Yeah.
And Elaine, in that scene, the next scene, she had no shoes on, which is odd for a TV show to have bare feet. It's like, I remember growing up and I thought, why does everyone wear sneakers inside all the time? Because on TV, everyone always has their sneakers on inside.
Yeah.
Is that an American thing or is that just a TV thing?
I think it's a TV thing.
You don't wear shoes inside your house?
I'm wearing my boots right now because I'm like stoked on them. But normally, I'm like a kid. So I'm like, you can't see it, but yeah, I'm wearing my boots now because they were
Buzz Lightyear pajamas.
Buzz Lightyear pajamas and my Red Wings. But so no, I think most of the time you want to take your shoes off. I mean, if you're a guest in somebody's house, I don't know. I was thinking about that earlier, randomly. I didn't even notice the whole Elaine foot thing, but I mean, I have my drummer, his family is his wife and mother-in-law Japanese, so it's like you take your shoes off when you come into their house. Yeah. It's like, and so we used to practice in his garage. So every time you wanted to use the bathroom, take your shoes off, and then you go into the house, come back out in the garage, put your shoes back on. And I was like, okay, I mean, it's your house rules for sure, right?
Yeah.
And then I just
always brought slippers to jam practice. I always brought slippers that are like formed like shoes.
Okay.
Made it easier.
House shoes. I should bring slippers. Anyway, yeah. No, I think most of the time people would have their shoes off in the house, especially like to be comfortable. Except for today, I'm choosing to be uncomfortable just so I can love my boots. Anyway,
You're breaking them in.
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, we left the door open, Kramer, and that was like the person to blame for the whole the break-in, which wasn't even really a break-in. It's just I walked in. Somebody walked in
and stole your shit.
Yeah. And so I think even like before the whole break-in or whatever, it's like kind of setting up Elaine wanting to get an apartment or move out because of her shitty neighbor or shitty roommate or whatever. And then this even like adds on more of like, Jerry should move out. He should, get a new place because of everything that's wrong. Yeah, this is where it comes up. It's like, oh, the heater, the fridge, the, robberies and stuff like that. It's not a good apartment, but he needs a new one. And then Elaine, she wants to like, oh, well, if you got a new apartment, I'll move into this one. And
your shitty situation is better than my shitty situation.
Yeah. It's like it's like you deserve better, and it'll be a step up if I move here from my apartment. So they're talking, and George, what is he? He's like a realtor or something like that. But he's able to he has an apartment in mind for Jerry, and so they're kind of setting that up. So trying to convince Jerry, it's like, hey, you're doing well with comedy now. You can move up and get a new place. So I think that's where the scene cuts, and then they go to visit the new apartment that George was talking about. Right? Or
before that, they did the police report.
Oh yes. I'm skipping ahead.
It's a shorter scene, but so the officer's there, and Jerry makes a joke about his answer machine being missing.
Yeah,
he's like, I can't handle the thought of someone out there returning my messages, and the cop just, what do you mean? Do you ever have that situation where you tell a joke and everyone just kind of looks at you and thinks,
yeah,
what the fuck's wrong with this guy?
It just didn't land. Oh, yeah. I would hate the criminal returning my calls. What do you mean? It's like, because he has an answering machine. That's a funny thing to take, too. It's like,
oh, yeah.
Why? I think
why would you take an answering machine?
Yeah. And then, but when they're filling out the police report, you're right. And then he says, like, oh, so do you usually find, any stolen stuff? No. And then he walks out. The cop is like, you usually find any of these things? No. And so they pretty much get the police report. And then, have you ever had been burgled before? Or
I haven't, but I imagine if you did and you call the police to file a report on your missing TV, that TV's gone. They're not going to actually.
I think it's mainly
find it for you.
It's mainly, I think, like for insurance purposes or whatever.
But create a pattern maybe if they had like multiple in the same area, but you're not gonna. Yeah, they're not gonna find your TV.
I could find the person. Not gonna find. Yeah. So it was probably maybe a decade or so ago. Couldn't say that. That my parents' house was broken into, and so I was like, oh shit! It was. I basically came home like, what the fuck? Why is the door open? It was the same thing. Like, why is the door open? And then lights on everywhere. I'm like, what the hell? And then came in, they took a rock and smashed through a sliding glass door to get into the place. And then luckily the cat and dog didn't leave or like run out the front door or whatever. Cause I think I was like, that was like, oh damn, could you imagine just the front door and then dog runs out and it's like, okay, cool. Now it's a robbery and missing dog, whatever.
I think the missing dog would be worse than the robbery.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think they did actually shut one of the door, like the front door, but left the screen door open. So luckily they shut the door so the dog couldn't get out. Anyway, but it was like, it's like sucked. It was mostly my mother's stuff that got stolen. So like, rings, wedding rings and stuff like that, some heirlooms and stuff like that. That, it's like, they didn't take any TV, no tech, no like laptops, nothing. And then they also stole Crown Royal. So my guess is it probably was like teenagers or something like that. So it was just like a shitty situation. It's mainly like my mom had her shit stolen, which sucks. Because like
fixing the glass would cost more than the Crown Royal.
Yeah. Which I'm like, they had to be kids,
Yeah.
And I think trying to piece together what happened, it's like they probably got scared, like, because of, like, I mean, not that it was a dachshund, it was my dog that scared him away, kind of, because they're like probably like, oh shit, there's more to this than we thought, and then they kind of were like, oh fuck it, let's get out of here. I'm glad they didn't hurt the dog or the cat or anything.
No,
but it's just having somebody. I'm like, oh, they broke into the house, and I'm like, didn't take any, like I said, laptop or no guitars or anything like that, because I'm sure they were just like, grab whatever you can, get the fuck out. Because I've never broken into a place, but I'm assuming that's what their mentality is. It's just like, grab everything that you can and go. And then, people... When
I ever burgled someone, I always know.
Well, yeah, and then they're like, oh, okay, take whatever you can. And even if you did take something, if you walk out of a house and you act like it's yours, then nobody really is going to stop you. Like, oh, yeah, no, I live here. I'm moving something. So, anyway, but that was like, that sucks. Hope it doesn't happen again. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you. It just makes you think, I'm like, well, that sucks. It made me think, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, the cop. And then same thing. I called the cop and they came over and the guy's just kind of looking around and like he's, I'm like, you're dusting for, you're not doing anything. You're not dusting for fingerprints. You're not going to do jack shit. But whatever. So mainly just like an insurance kind of thing. So anyways, back to it. So they kind of go
goes off to commercial, and then when it comes back, Jerry does his stand up and he's talking about Batman villains.
Yeah.
So this is the first DC reference in the series so far, but he becomes known as a Superman fan throughout the whole thing. Like, he's a big Superman fan. So I found it funny that the first reference to the DC universe was a Batman reference. Both the villains and, it was easier to solve crimes there because the Penguin looked like a penguin and the Joker looked like a clown, kind of.
Yeah. The villains, they were costumed.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's easy to find the bad guy. Whereas in reality, anybody could be, a burglar. Anybody could, rob you.
Yeah, that guy's wearing a costume. He's probably a bad guy because he's not Batman.
Yeah. But yeah, and then they go to the new apartment, or the apartment that he's trying to get Jerry to rent, and they're loving the whole thing. It's big open. Oh my god, there's a garden. There's a fireplace. I've never had a fireplace. Well, you could get how do I get wood there? Oh, you have a wood guy deliver it. And
this is where you're starting to see George's personality a little more. He's his selfishness and it's coming out more.
Yeah. He's liking the apartment. Everybody's liking it. And then it was one thing that it's still like I understand, but it's like kind of the design of the apartment. They have the sliding walk-in closet that's by the front entrance.
Yeah.
Where does that door go to?
Yeah, just
it'll have. It's gonna have to go into a wall that's on the other side outside the apartment,
like a pocket door that goes out into the hallway.
Yeah. So it's not. Yeah, it's just for me. This has nothing to do with the story. I remember seeing
a TV set situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I've seen that, it comes up, and even watching it this time, I'm like, why do they have that there? They didn't need to have the sliding door that goes into the wall. But I'm like, that was just the design choice. I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, that wall is going to go into the hallway. That's a terrible design. It was just, I couldn't let that go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was, one the stupid thing I had to mention. But yeah, Jerry's digging the place. He's going to take the place. And then, they're all excited. You can tell George is not as excited because he, in the next scene back at Jerry's place, he's going to come in with the papers to sign, the lease. And then Jerry's like, wow, 3-year lease. He's like, well, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. He's trying to get Jerry to back out of it any time.
Talking like he's trying to help Jerry out, but just really helping himself out.
Yeah. That's definitely George's character being more, because he was in the other two, but he wasn't really as much of a George. He's, George is definitely develops more like neurotic. He's kind of more selfish. He's kind of like more, that's kind of the George character. He's kind of like
he was more of a companion for the first two, but now he's becoming his own anti-hero.
Yeah,
anti-hero.
And then doing the coin flip. Okay, so George wants the apartment, Jerry wants the apartment, and they do the coin flip, and it was Elaine's just an observer because she's like, I'm gonna get either like if George moves, I'm gonna move to his place. If Jerry moves, I'm gonna move into his apartment. She just wants to get out of that apartment.
Yeah, that's all. Her only concern is getting out of where she is.
Mm-hmm. And so they do the coin flip, and then Jerry wins. It's like, no, it hit the table. You could tell George is trying to get anything that he can. Like, oh, no, it hit the table. It doesn't count. It doesn't count.
What are the rules there? Is there an interference rule? Like when you flip a coin, it seems like anytime a coin flip happens, no one's happy with the result. Like,
yeah. Oh, no, that happened.
You need to lay the rules out ahead of time. Interference. Do you throw it and catch it, and then flip it onto your hand?
See, I've always done your hand. I've always done that. Flip it and catch it and put it on the hand. Yeah,
that was. But if you miss it and it lands on the floor, does that count, or do you know?
Yeah, and then
What's
they
the
did
rule?
This thing. They choose for it. Is the next game because like George loses that, he's like, no, we're gonna choose for it. And I'm like, I've never seen that outside of this episode.
No, I've seen odds and evens. People called it.
Okay, so
and you put your fingers out.
Yeah, basically,
but their choose is it's I never heard it called choose before.
But I've never seen that. So it's basically they are each going to put out a number on their fingers, so 1 through 5, and then so is the other person, and whatever it adds up to, they either get odds or evens. So it's all still up to chance, And
I never heard it called choose before until. Well, I've heard it called choose on Seinfeld, but the only place it's always called odds or evens.
Yeah,
maybe Doug Chris can tune in here if he chime in and let us know if it's called choose or not. He's a New York boy.
Maybe it's a New York thing, but yeah, and so they get the odds and evens, and then George is like, what, 2? It's best like 3 out of 5 or whatever, or the first to 5 or something like that is what it is.
Yeah,
and
Jerry
then
gets the first 2 right.
Getting so intense.
George is pulling his hair out.
Yeah, George ultimately loses, and he goes to the bathroom and it's like, all right, fair and square, and he's yelling in the bathroom, why did I put out 2? And then Kramer pops in real quick, which is funny, just like a little more comedic effect. He feels he's like letting he's letting Jerry know that he's on the case to try and find the missing stuff, and he's just bothering the apartment dwellers. And it goes nowhere, which I think is funny because I'm like,
I know about the stuff.
Yeah, he's just bothering people, and then I'm like, wait, does he actually do anything? I'm like, no, and then he never comes back to the episode.
Yeah, you're kind of waiting for him to come back, and
I wonder if there was another storyline with Kramer, that they just cut out of the show or that episode.
It feels like there's a cutscene in there somewhere that he came back and reported back, and they're like, that sucked. We're not going to leave it in there. So
yeah, it probably didn't add to it much. And then they're at Monk's, cuts to Monk's, and it looks more like Monk's coffee shop, except they're not no booths. They're not in booth. They're usually a booth.
Yeah, the booth is like the very front of the screen. You can see the corner of the booth, but they're sitting at a table.
Yeah, they usually sit at the booth.
Yeah, that comes later.
And then
George is talking about you can't eat eggs, you can't eat bacon. He's going through the whole menu, what you can't eat. And I found it funny. He's talking about what's healthy and you can't eat all this unhealthy stuff. And right behind him, there's a sign that says smoking only in the designated area.
Yeah. I didn't notice that. Yeah.
Yeah. So with all the healthy food options, but you can smoke over there.
Yeah, you can still smoke inside. I didn't catch that little bit, but that's good. Yeah. So I think this is where they kind of go to, like, they both want the apartment, and then Jerry's like, I'm giving it up, not gonna get it, because it's like, well, what if you come over? You're not gonna feel uncomfortable that whole time. It's like, no, you take the apartment. Well, somebody's gonna have to take the apartment, and it's like, and then the waitress comes over, like, oh, what's the rent?
Yeah.
And it cuts to them at the housewarming party, which is kind of weird. Like, for somebody that you don't even really know going to a party at their place just because you mentioned.
Got them in the apartment.
Yeah, and that's George's job. They'd be like, oh, I rented a place. Let me invite, like, I don't know, the realtor over.
Yeah. It's kind of an odd choice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's kind of
bring 2 of your friends.
Yeah. And then, yeah.
You're invited +2.
Plus guests or whatever. And yeah, the waitress, overheard. Yeah. And then it goes, she got the place. And then it's just kind of them at the housewarming, and they just all feel like they totally got missed out. They all made a mistake.
They're just depressed sitting on the chair. They're
Yeah.
on the couch there together. Yeah.
Elaine still lives with her roommate, hates the place. Jerry, George, they really wanted that place still. And then it's like, oh, it's a really cool area. Oh my God, it's so close to the park. Yeah, we know. And then it's like the neighbor is like an attractive woman who is also a masseuse who gives free massages, and George is staring at her, just lingering.
And here's my Andrew's wife Ashley note of the episode. The redheaded masseuse, Diane, was Bill's princess from Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She said something, and Ashley went, "Wait a minute, I know that." Like, I forget what she said. She said one word that she said, and she goes, "That voice," and then she gets on IMDb and she looks up and goes, "That was the princess on Bill and Ted. She was Bill's princess.
I shall Google it."
Yeah, Princess Elizabeth. So,
nice.
yeah.
Okay. a little cameo there, and there's a lot more later on, especially with Jerry's girlfriends.
Oh yeah,
I think like Courtney Cox is, one of Jerry's girlfriends.
There's a lot in there that.
Yeah, and then it kind of ends with them, sitting there on the couch, depressed, and then they're overhearing a conversation with somebody else saying, "I gotta move. I gotta leave. What are you gonna do? I gotta leave my apartment." And they all three turn aran. What's the rent? So they're all interested. They just all want to get out of their apartments. Yeah, and it ends. That's it. It's pretty. Like, I've said this before, but I'm like, I remember these episodes not being very Seinfeldy, but I'm like, no, they're great.
Yeah, this one was very Seinfeld. When I was watching this one, I thought, this feels like it comes much later in the series. Like, it feels like a...
Yeah.
If you said, remember the episode where they were looking at the apartment and there's a fireplace and blah, I'd say, yeah, that was like season 4, not episode 3 of season 1. You know, it feels like that episode came much later. So they caught their groove very early on.
Totally.
Like I said earlier, the apartment seems to be ready to go. Like the apartment, I don't think until the kitchen changes, the layout of the apartment is what we know from Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Right? So,
and
George's character's kind of developed
already.
They lose the realtor part later on, which I think is a good choice. But Kramer does his first slide into the room in this episode. Like he just opens the door and slides right in. Like that starts already.
Yeah.
His hair's there. He lost the robe. Like they developed that character
pretty quick.
Quickly.
Yeah. I'm digging it. This is a fun one, and I am bouncing around and watching other episodes of Seinfeld throughout the week, and I love this show. So good. I'll pick like a random. I'm like, let's go. 7, 3. And then
jumping around.
Yeah. So that's, excited to see when more characters come in, like Newman and Banya and some of the reoccurring roles.
And on the DVD, because I mentioned last time I got the DVD set, they switch episodes around in season 1. It's not the same order of episodes, so I had to go back and make sure we're following the right Netflix episode.
Oh, really?
I think the stock tip came in 3rd on the DVD. I forget which one. This wasn't episode 3 on the DVDs. They flipped it around a little bit. They moved things around.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is I'm not sure why. I don't know why they did that, but they did.
Or maybe it was a mess up or something, or maybe who knows? Yeah, but we'll have to make sure we're both watching the same one, or we're gonna talk about we have different notes.
Yeah. And the DVD set too, when George's father gets introduced, it's not Jerry Stiller in the first episode with George's dad. Then they go back and re-record it because Larry David wanted the continuation to be correct. So they re-recorded the episode with George's first father with Jerry Stiller.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure the DVD set has both episodes, the episode with Jerry and the episode with the other actor that played George's dad initially.
Yeah, because I remember watching that. I would catch some episodes that were, I'm like, I've seen this, and I knew that wasn't, Jerry Stiller. And then you watch it again, and it is. So depending on if you watch like TBS or Fox or something like that, when they did the replays, I'm like, huh. I'm like, am I crazy? I'm like, I knew there was a different dad. And then
so Larry David didn't want the different dad. He wanted it to be the same throughout the series. So, but he never went back and changed Jerry's dad on episode 1 and 2. Right?
Yeah,
so,
those are good. Like when they cast, Jerry's dad again, with the I don't remember the other actor. That's a better fit for sure.
Oh yeah,
because especially with him and the mom, I'm like, they're just so annoying, and they fit so well together. I did bounce to watch like the Del Boca Vista ones and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
the pen, the space pen, or whatever. Yeah, those are good. Anyway, we'll get to those later on. But I think it's good. Episode 3. Let's get on out of here.
Yeah. So thanks for listening to Second Button Podcast, and we'll catch you for episode 4.
Yeah. Follow along on Instagram at the Second Button Podcast, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So eventually we'll maybe add video to the podcast. But yeah, that's it. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you. Goodbye now.